Why hello there, and welcome back to another tank review. I'm Corny Swiss, and today we're going to be looking at the Marder III, which is a rank 2, 2.7 battle rating tank destroyer for the Germans. And as with all reviews, if you want to see something in particular, like a simulator gameplay or a realistic gameplay, feel free to check out the timestamps below, and you can find the timestamps for those particular parts of the review, and go on your merry way. But right now we're going to get started with the garage portion of the review, so let's get going. The Marder III is kind of another one of these stopgap measures that World War II era armies had to put in to counter their opponent's new tech. The Marder III was designed in 1942 and put into service that same year and served through basically to the end of the war. The reason that German designers needed to make this tank is because when the Germans invaded Soviet Russia and ran into T-34s and KV-1s and things like that, their anti-tank guns just weren't mobile enough and they weren't powerful enough to really deal with these threats effectively from range. And in the early parts of Operation Barbarossa, they were able to capture tons and tons of 76.2 millimeter Soviet field guns. And these guns, if given the right ammunition, were effective anti-tank pieces. So what German planners and designers did is they took the Panzer 38T, which was obsolete as a tank, and slapped a gun shield on top of it with this 76.2 millimeter gun. They also made 75 millimeter gun variants, but the focus was on, well, the variant we have in War Thunder is a 76.2 millimeter gun, and it's a captured Russian gun, as you can see by that little parentheses R on the stat page. That indicates a Russian gun. And it's a really effective anti-tank gun. And the goal with the Marder III was to be a quicker, more maneuverable in the grand scope of things tank destroyer that could get to the front and get to positions to support the advancing German army. And because the focus was on mobility, this thing doesn't have a lot of armor, which is indicated by the fact that it weighs 11.3 tons, which isn't a lot, but it does have a 160 horsepower engine at 3,000 RPM, and it can do that 42 kilometer per hour top speed. This thing can shift across the battlefield pretty easy. However, its one true desire in life is to get to a spot and stay there and just pound Russian tanks at range because it has the penetration and the shell to do that. But let's flash up the armor and just show you kind of how light it actually is. So you flash up the Marder III's armor and it kind of looks like a Christmas ornament, which is not good on your tanks. You only have a little bit of red and a lot of green. Green is, for a Russian tank, green is good. For a German tank, green is bad in this scenario. Your 50 millimeters of hull armor at the front is here and here. It's the lower plate and this very flat upper plate. Neither of which, 50 millimeters is just not thick enough to deal with the Soviet guns this thing can see. You'll be penetrated in the front all day long with Soviet guns shooting into this 50 millimeter armor plate. And you say, okay, well, the plate above it is really heavily sloped. Maybe that should be able to, protect a little bit. No, it's 16 millimeters. It really, there isn't a good spot of armor on this thing. All right, you do have this track here, which adds some effective thickness to this 50 millimeter plate, but it's not gonna save your life anytime. Why would they shoot you here when they can shoot you here, or better yet, shoot you right here and knock out your gunner and get the next shot for sure? Because this is an open-top vehicle, the gunner's sitting here and the loader's sitting here, so that's a little bit of an issue. Side armor, what side armor? It's paper mache. It's supposed to be a sneaky tank destroyer. It's not designed to have armor, and it does not have armor. So let's look at the X-ray. The X-ray, you have the machine gunner right here, driver over here, transmission in between them. In the back, you have your fuel tanks, your engine, your radiator, things like that. Above them, your loader's sitting over here, your gunner's sitting here, obviously the gun in the middle. You have ammo in the side of the tank here and here, and duplicated on the other side. What does this mean? You also have a radio. The radio's down in there, but that doesn't really matter. What does this mean? When this thing gets hit, something gets broken. Whether it's a crew member, whether it's ammo, whether it's set on fire by hitting fuel, engine, or transmission, whatever. You very rarely take a hit in this thing that doesn't damage you in some way. The easiest way to not damage this thing is to shoot right down the middle of the shield here. Because think about it, if you shoot it above the gun and miss the gun, it's just going to go clean through and there's going to be no damage. Shooting the gun shield is not a great way to damage this tank unless you hit the gunner or the loader. So in terms of layout, you're kind of protecting your ammo with your driver and your gunner, or your machine gunner, behind not much armor. This tank kind of is made of paper mache. But it's a sneaky tank destroyer. And it's an effective sneaky tank destroyer because of the gun. Like I said, the 76.2 millimeter gun this tank has is a Russian field gun, but it was redone to take standard German rounds. So here you have 4 types of ammunition. You start with this AP and this HE. The AP is, in my opinion, the all-round best ammo choice in this tank. It has great armor penetration for this tier, 117 millimeters at 10 meters, 99 at 500, and 67 at 1500, which means you can deal with a T-34 at every range that he'll want to deal with you at, or try and deal with you at, and you can shoot him past that as well. 740 meters per second muzzle velocity, pretty good. Long range engagements are pretty easy in this tank because the 2 shells you're going to want to use have good muzzle velocity. The heat shell is not one of those two, in my opinion. I think the heat shell is good if they're right up in your face and you just need to slam them with something. It has 100 millimeters of penetration at all ranges, but the 450 meters per second muzzle velocity just almost makes it unusable to me. I struggle to use ammunition that's 450 meters per second muzzle velocity. It's just you have to aim so high up that you can't see the target anymore in the scope, which is an issue for me. The APCR is a really, really good round on this tank. It has great penetration, 153 at 10 meters, 122 at 500 meters, and 82 at 1500 meters. And it has 990 meters per second muzzle velocity. The APCR is basically a laser pointer, and it'll penetrate whatever it hits at range. The issue I have with it is that it has a little bit too much penetration, and the only reason you really need it is if you're engaging a KV-1 from long range, at which point his gun may not be able to effectively hit you. So the APCR is kind of unnecessary, but I usually keep some of it around. I'd say my ratio of AP to APCR is maybe 2 or 3 to 1, AP being the most prevalent, because the AP shell is really good and it has penetration I need, and it's just an overall good shell, whereas the APCR won't do quite as much damage when you do hit, which could be a little bit of an issue for you. In terms of ammo capacity, this thing holds 30 rounds. I have run out of ammunition before, but it doesn't happen all the time. And usually when it happens, the game's just about over because hopefully you've killed the enemy team. But, that being said, you might run out of ammunition in it. Has 6 degrees of gun depression, 18 degrees of elevation. With this, it's a tall tank, and you should be engaging at range with this thing, so the gun depression doesn't matter all that much. And a 9.1 second reload rate, pretty good. It's not going to beat like a T-34's rate of fire, but you should be able to get shells on target from a much farther range and make his life more difficult. So that's kind of what you're getting with the Marder III. A quick overview. Armor. What armor? There isn't a whole lot. It's 50 millimeters here and here. Not that great. Everything else is kind of paper. Even this is somewhat paper. In terms of layout, driver, machine gunner, gunner loader. They're all kind of out in the open. Usually when you take a hit in this tank, someone gets wounded or something, and you more often than not get set on fire, which is always an issue, or they just straight blow you up. But that being said, it's not meant to get shot at. It has good, decent speed, a good engine, so you should use that to get to weird positions or to stay with your team and not be the first person they're going to shoot. Make them shoot, you know, a Panzer III or Panzer IV. Those tanks are more designed to be shot at than this thing. So with that, let's jump into some replays. So for the first replay, I'm driving the Marder III out on Poland in a realistic battle. And I apologize, but both replays are actually from Poland. And I blame the fact that I've been getting Poland a lot. And it's not that I want to only show Poland maps, it's that that's kind of all I've been getting. But, I mean, it's a solid map, so why not? We're just driving around to kind of flank their approach. Given the... Usually what happens on this map, if the enemy if you're in the western spawn, is the eastern spawn in this sort of diagonal layout are going to push it towards the city and try and take the city, and then push you back towards your spawn. I always find that it's not a bad idea to flank around this side and then approach from this weirder angle, because now I can engage them as they're running into the city and hopefully get some sneaky side shots. And right here, I'm in a good spot because I have 3 allied tanks ahead of me. Hopefully that means that they aren't going to shoot me first. And I'm trying to arc shells over this hill to hit that T-50, but he's a sneaky guy. I played this game before I really knew the extent at which you can fire through walls and buildings and things like that, so probably could have kept shelling him, but it's whatever. I've decided to move up because we do have a lot of tanks here, and that makes me feel pretty safe to move forward, because hopefully they're going to be targeting like Panzer IIIJs and things like that, or this Stug that's sitting next to me. He has more armor. But there are targets ahead of me, and they're all trying to sort of get into the city, and there's this Su-76M making a run across the field that I kind of want to get some shells on. And at this point, when I was playing the Marder, I hadn't quite figured out how much AP and APCR I wanted to hold. As you can see in this one, I started with 10 AP and 20 APCR. I've kind of since decided that it should be the other way around, about 20 AP and the rest APCR, because you don't need that much APCR. It makes it easier when you're trying to hit targets, but when you get used to it, it's better to use the AP, in my opinion. Just because you'll do more, when you hit, you'll hit harder, and you really want to go for those one-shot kills. And right now I'm just firing short the whole time, which is a little unfortunate. And these shells that aren't connecting are going to kind of be an issue later. See, I'm just playing poorly right here. I'm not hitting those targets. The gun is accurate, but you need to get used to it, especially if you're more used to German guns that are laser pointers in themselves. But finally start hitting things. Hit the Su-76 a little low. So adjust a little bit. Give it another shell, and bam, we got him. And now I'm fresh out of AP. So now I'm going to be using APCR exclusive. But that's not a horrible thing, because now accuracy should improve, he says as he misses. But that's a ZIS-30. I'm not horribly worried about dealing with him, because there are T-34s to the front, which I'd much rather take some shots at. But this is kind of the position you want to be in a Marder III. I'm back from the front. We have tanks that are much closer to them than me. And I'm in concealment, which it doesn't really matter in realistic because they can still see you. But to some degree it matters, because it's always easier to hit a target you can see. You have direct line of sight on than a target you generally know its location. So in that sense, I have some concealment. It's going to be more difficult for them to engage me effectively with their first couple shots. And I've switched my focus to this Sis-30, who just got lit on fire, I believe. And right now, I think what's happening is my shells are going through his gun shield rather than hitting his crew or doing things like that. But my position has kind of used up its usefulness, I guess. Our allied forces are kind of pushing forward, and the enemy are in cover, so that it's a little difficult for me to engage them. But moving up to this little rise right here gives me another look at this T-50. And right now what I should have been doing is just shooting clean through the building, because I have the penetration to do it. With APCR I should be able to get through the side of that building. But I mean, he gets knocked out anyway, so it doesn't matter. And I feel pretty safe about moving up right here because we do have tanks in the town, and they're pushing out of the town, so they're hopefully going to be the targets that the enemy are going for, not me. And you kind of need to look at the map that way. You need to look at it and say, who is most likely to get shot? And if it's you, you should move back. You don't want to be the one who's in their target sites, because you're just not that durable. So now this is a little bit of an issue. We have a medium tank, a T-34, who's kind of flanking. And when you see someone flanking in this tank, they need to become the priority. I'm not really going to be able to go anywhere because, I mean, I'm kind of out in the open now. I do have a lot of teammates around me, and there are teammates over in that area, but I'd rather not have to turn all the way this way and give my broadside to their spawn to engage these guys. So we need to deal with these guys quickly. And in this situation, this gun is normally very, very effective. I'm just kind of missing shots and not hitting very well, things like that. Got his horizontal drive, which is nice. But notice my ammo ticker. I've fired 20 shots so far, and I only have 30, so I'm down to 9 more APCR, which is going to be an issue. Newsflash, I actually run out of ammo, and I wreck the tank as a result, because I mean, there's just not a lot you can do in this tank with no ammo and no easy way of getting more. The easiest way would be to go back to our spawn, but that run is just way too long. So hit the T-34. It would have been better if I'd hit him a little farther on so that he would die, but that wasn't meant to be. And at some point I'm going to switch targets. See right there, notice I haven't really had to move for the gun at all, but there I had to adjust my chassis for to get more traverse because the T-34 ran outside my gun arc. This T-28 though is running basically at me, so I can just keep pounding him, and at this range I can basically just put the marker right on him, and he's going to get the good news. I just have to lead him correctly, and also not get messed up in the just amount of weird angles on that tank. So the T-28 got the good news, finally. And now it's that T-34 out there. I have 2 shells left. First one's a hit. So this is my last shell, and at the time I actually didn't realize it was my last shell. But it would have been nice, obviously, to be sitting right next to a cap circle where I could just get more, but I knock him out, and at this point I've realized I'm out of ammo. So I tell my team that I'm out of ammo, and I go ahead and back up. I'm thinking about, okay, can I go back? And I was like, nah, I might as well just wreck the tank and jump into a new one and spawn back there to help win the game. So let's move on to the next replay. So here we are in a simulator battle on, you guessed it, Poland. And in this battle, we're in the opposite spawn. So I'm making the decision that I don't want to be flanked in this tank, because that'll be kind of an issue. So I'm going to swing way out of side of the city and then push back in, because this tank will not deal with city fighting that well. It's just not durable enough, and my first shot would absolutely need to destroy them, and I just can't get hit, so I don't want to go into the city. I'd much rather stick to the edges of the city and fire into it from relative safety and concealment so the enemy can't find me. So that's kind of what I'm looking for over here. There's lots of little ridges and lower ground, little tree thickets that are perfect for this tank to chill in. The difficulty with concealing this tank, though, is that it has such a high, what's it called, silhouette, that hiding can be a little bit of an issue. But it does mean that if you can be a little sneaky, there are lines of fire that you can get that your enemy may not expect. For example, you can be barely peeking out of over the top of a little bush and have bushes on either side in front, and you're just in that tiny little window, and usually the enemy won't spot you. But I'm kind of getting to where I want to be now. I'm in this lower ground with these little ridges next to me and all these little bushes and trees and such, and that's going to give me the concealment I need to basically get some pot shots in at the enemy as they're pushing into the town, and then give me an avenue to go into the town to hunt down the rest of them. But hopefully, when I was playing, I was really hoping it wouldn't come down to that. And side note, I like how there's random plane bits laying around on the battlefield. It's a nice touch, I think. Kind of shows that this is a multi-dimensional battlefield. So I'm in my first little position, and my goal is to kind of look across to the field that I know they're going to be traversing, and on the mini-map you can see I've spotted a few of them, but I'm having there's one. Now, as you can tell with the last replay, I'm not a particularly great shot with this gun, and that went hella short. So that might be a little bit of an issue. Now there's a T-35. T-35s, I think the T-35 really wants to be the TOG. Really wants to be the TOG, but it's just not good. Like, the TOG isn't good either, but it's good at something. The T-35 is not good at anything. So it makes it very difficult to play, and it is a massive target, and at this range I'd rather shoot at the T-35 than like his little friend sitting next to him. However, the enemy have gone into the town, and they didn't particularly notice me. So it's kind of to the point where most of them are in the town now, and it's going to be difficult for me to get lines of fire from that position. So I'm going to move up and try and get weird angles on them. And just like in the last replay, this one, I've since changed my ammo layout to be more AP than APCR. But it is an effective strategy if you're going into a map where you expect long-range engagements, maybe to throw more APCR in just to get that better long-range accuracy. But my teammates have kind of pushed to the extremes of the town. We have someone on our edge, someone in the northern edge, someone on the southern edge. And we actually have someone who's capping their base because they swung all the way around while the enemy were just YOLOing into the town. So at this point, since I haven't spotted anybody, I'm more inclined to try and flank in. And actually right here, I almost get done in by this medium tank, T-34, who shoots me, lights me on fire, but my first shot goes in and kills most of his crew. I'm able to put the fire out and move on forward. This tank gets lit on fire a lot. However, a lot of times the first shot you take won't knock you out. And I think that's mainly due to people maybe shooting the gun shield or things like that. Because if they shoot the gun shield, they can still light you on fire if they get shrapnel and things like that, but it's unlikely. And if they shoot the front of your tank where the transmission's likely to eat the shell. And yeah, you'll light the tank on fire, but it's not really going to fracture and go everywhere in the tank. So at this point, I know the enemy are in the southern part of town, thanks to just my teammates dying. So I'm kind of looking for creative ways to get down there and pop up on them because this tank doesn't like city fighting, and I'm in the middle of a city. It's a bold life choice, I know. But there is also a T-35 in here that I'm hunting. This is a tank hunter. A tank hunter, and I'm looking for that T-35 so I can get a big helping. And I'm pretty sure he's just right down over here. When I was playing, I was thinking, should I go right or left? And I decided to go left, and I'm kind of glad I did because I find him. And there's actually going to be a medium tank that's going to try and flank around me to the right, but we're going to give him the good news. And this guy's actually done up his T-35. Lots of markings on it. And there's lots of room to have plenty of artwork on the T-35 because it is just a huge tank. But my first shot did some decent damage to him. So now I'm going to put the next shot in, which knocks him out, which is cool. So I have a T-35 to my name. I've actually only knocked out, I think, 1 or 2 T-35s. So not that common, mainly because they're not that good. And I think people kind of realize that when they... Sure, it has multiple turrets, but none of the guns are particularly effective. So I know the medium tank went around over here, and we're actually going to run into him. And it's a little T-26, so not really a medium tank, it's a light tank. My first shot hits his loader. It went a little high, I was firing on the move, but I go for a little ram move. His turret traverse is so slow that I can just sit here and just plant one into him. Bam. Knocked him out. And now, I'm pretty sure the city is clean. There shouldn't be any more enemies in the city. But we'll see. But I'm kind of nervous about being in the city still, so I'm going to leave the city and look for like a concealed firing position so I can just shoot them as they come out of their spawn or whatever they're going to be doing. However, there is a T-34 over here who is trying to give the good news to one of our tanks. He was stopped right behind that tree and I couldn't see him. So I fired through the tree and I just missed because wasn't a lot of him there. But he gets knocked out by a Panzer III-J. That's a tank I need to play more of. I have played it a little bit, but I need to play it more. Because, I mean, it's a Panzer III-L at 1 battle rating lower. However, I did hear that they're moving it up a battle rating. Which is a little odd because it's supposed to compete with the T-50, but it won't see T-50s very much at a 3.7 battle rating versus a 2.7, where it'll see T-50s basically all the time. But, whatever. So, we're moving up onto this little ridge, and their cap is just right over there. I do have friendly support on right and left, so I feel okay about pushing forward. Actually, you can actually see the shell hole from the T-34 on that front plate. What probably happened is the shell went in and fractured, hit maybe the engine or the transmission or radiator, fuel tank, something, set me on fire, but the shrapnel didn't hit anything else. So, kind of unlucky for the T-34, lucky for me. But we have a allied tank moving around that farmhouse to jump into the cap, and now we've spotted an enemy tank. And I believe it's a KV-1. Maybe? No, it's a ZIS-30. Why did it say KV-1? Oh, it's because I was looking at the minimap to try and see what exactly it was, so I didn't remember. But there goes the ZIS-30. He got blown sky high. Good news was spread. But there is another tank over here. I mean, we're pretty close to their spawn, so it's very easy for them to outflank us. And there goes a T-26, and I believe that's going to be all their players. I'm tabbing to check to see who's here, to see if they did run out of players, but it looks like they actually didn't. And there's going to be another guy way down over here somewhere. And I kind of just fired in his general direction, hoping to maybe hit him, but I believe it's a T-26, and he's hiding pretty good because he's a little itty-bitty tank. And there we go. I mean, I know pretty much where he is, but it's difficult to get a bead on him. Just took a incoming fire. There he is. Stay in sniper mode so I don't lose his general position. And give him the good news. There we go. So, and that's going to be all their players. So, let's move on to the opinion. Alright, so opinion time. What do I think of the Marder III? I think it's the quintessential sneaky tank destroyer. It doesn't like to get hit, but it loves hitting things. The gun is really effective. I'm not a great shot with it, but if I practiced more, this gun would be really, really effective against Russian armor at this tier. It can handle everything it sees with standard ammunition. APCR can help sometimes at range when you're dealing with things like KV-1s, but it's not entirely necessary. It's quick enough to shift on the battlefield and get from point A to point B very quickly. However, it is really light and it's prone to flipping, and if you try and go down a cliff, you very well could like flip over on the way down, which I've done on Ash River, trying to scale that little cliff over there on the southern ridge, and I just flip over, and it's sad. It's very sad. But overall, it's a good tank. It's a good gun, and the gun is really what you're sort of buying into. It's a large caliber for this tier, and it's got a lot of penetration. And even though it only has 30 rounds of ammunition, usually you don't need more than that. Now, if you're a bad shot like me, you need more than that. But you'll do plenty of damage in the meantime. So it's a solid low tier tank destroyer. It's a one-trick pony in the sense that it needs to be sneaky, but if this thing can get in the right position, it can really devastate an enemy team. So, yeah, that's the review for the Marder III. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. If there's a tank you want me to do next or something like that, then leave it in the comments section. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, funny jokes, I'll be more than happy to read them. But I've been Corny Swiss, and I'll see you next time.